Okay, so get this. Which world religion is the oldest? I mean, have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, it's one of those questions that just sort of pops into your head, like where did it all begin?
Right. And today we're going to dive deep into this question. We've got this super interesting article.
Oh, yeah, it really gets you thinking about like ancient texts and oral traditions and stuff.
It really makes you question like how we even define religion.
Yeah, totally.
Like I always just, I don't know, kind of assumed Hinduism was the oldest. What with, over 1 billion followers. And they say some of their texts date back like 3,000 years.
Right. Hinduism is definitely up there. The article talks about the Vedas. Remember those?
Refresh my memory.
Okay, so those are like the foundational texts of Hinduism, a collection of hymns and all sorts of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
And they think those were composed somewhere between 1500 and 500 BCE, which is
Wow.
crazy old, right? But here's the thing.
What's the thing?
They were originally part of an oral tradition. So, like, think about it.
Wait, so they weren't written down?
Not at first. They were passed down through generations by word of mouth.
So, like, imagine that. All those stories, the rituals, everything.
Yeah.
Just memorized and shared for centuries.
Pretty amazing, huh? And it makes you wonder, does that mean it wasn't a religion until it was written down?
That's a great point. I mean, we always think of, like, the Bible or the Quran, written stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of ancient cultures, they relied on oral traditions, especially, way back then when writing was just starting to become a thing.
Makes sense. So, okay, Hinduism, super old, right?
Yeah.
But then the article brings up this other religion, Zoroastrianism, was it?
Zoroastrianism, yeah. That was like the main religion in Persia before Islam came along.
Okay.
And here's where it gets interesting. They say Zoroastrianism actually draws on some early compositions in Plant. Get this. Sanskrit.
No way. The same language as the Vedas.
The very same. We're talking
Yeah.
about hymns attributed to Zoroaster, the founder of the faith. And some scholars think those could be even older than some of the written Hindu texts.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
So does that mean, are we saying Hinduism might not be the oldest?
Well, it depends, right? Like, how do you measure the age of a religion? Is it just about when the texts were written down? Or does the oral tradition count for something?
I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Like, how do you even decide that?
And then there's another contender, remember, Judaism.
Oh, right. Judaism. They have a pretty old tradition too, don't they?
Definitely. A long oral tradition, and the written texts could be even older than what we've talked about so far. The article specifically mentions the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible.
Ah, okay. The Torah.
Exactly. That forms the basis for, like, Jewish law and tradition. And some scholars believe parts of that were written, wait for it, in the mid-2nd millennium BCE.
Okay, that's getting way back there.
Right. Even older than some of the Hindu and Zoroastrian texts. And the Pentateuch is really cool, by the way.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it shows you how a religion can change over time. It's got, like, narratives, laws, poetry, stuff from different periods and different influences.
So even with a text that old, we can see how beliefs
Evolved.
Yeah, and it makes you think, like, if a religion changes that much, can we still call it the same faith?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right. It's like playing telephone with history.
Huh. I like that.
How much can a belief system change before it becomes something?
Totally different.
Yeah.
And it's something to think about, even with newer religions like Christianity and Islam.
Oh, that's true. They came later, but...
But they have roots in these older traditions.
Yeah, Christianity comes from Judaism.
And Islam has influences from both Judaism and Christianity.
So it's almost like we're looking at chapters in this big, long story.
Right. The ongoing story of human spirituality. I like that.
Right. And maybe trying to figure out which one is the oldest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really the point.
Maybe it's more about appreciating those deep roots and how connected everything is across time and cultures.
Exactly. It's like a family tree, in a way.
Yeah, I like that.
So what do you think? Does a religion have to stay the same to be considered the same faith? Or is it okay for it to, like, evolve and adapt? Something to think about, right?
Definitely food for thought. And it kind of changes how you view the world's religions, don't you think? Like seeing them all as part of this big interconnected tapestry.
Wow, yeah. That's a great way to put it. So maybe the question isn't so much which is oldest, but how they're all connected to each other.
Yeah.
And to us.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, right?
Totally. So much to think about.
Always.
Always.